Welcome to the Care Principles video podcast. Today, Stijn Degrieck, CEO of Codit, is our guest in the Care Principles video podcast. Stijn has been at Codit since 2004. With his iconic no-nonsense attitude, he held almost every role at Codit, from developing code and managing clients right up to leading some of the biggest industry projects in Europe. Did you know that Stijn picked up his work ethic from teenage jobs in the local butcher store and in a brewery? Cheers, bottoms up.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Care Principles video podcast. So happy that you're here today again. And today I welcome Stijn Degrieck. Hi Stijn.
Hello Isabel.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
I'm very happy that you are here because we don't know each other. But before I dive into the conversation, so you worked at a butcher when you were a teenager, and that's where you learned the hard work?
Yeah, indeed. Sunday morning from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So after some beers at the bar and Saturday evening, I had to get up at 6 to be there at 7 and cleaning up, doing the dishes, scrubbing floors, etc., preparing chickens. So it was a tough job, very dirty, very smelly, but there I really learned from the owner there what working is really all about, hand labor, etc. So yeah, indeed.
Great. And that is, you've learned lessons there that you still apply now as a CEO of Codit.
Absolutely, it's about work ethos, about doing what you say and saying what you do. The budget is quite easy if you don't have your products to sell. The people can't buy them, so they need to make sure to be reliable. They need to be preparing the products every day, etc., etc. So it's the same at our job. Although we don't do physical things, it's more about bits and bytes, but it's also more or less the same.
You can explain me in a second what you do, because we don't know each other. We've never met before. I asked on social media if anybody knew a very caring company to invite to this video podcast series. And Sophie, someone who worked for you for 8 years, said, you have to invite Stijn from Codit. I've never heard of Codit, so please explain me, what do you guys do?
So we are an IT service company, so consultancy, and we are focused on the cloud. So we are automating the business processes of our customers by automating data exchange between applications, between suppliers, customers, governmental organizations. We also build cloud solutions on top of Microsoft technology. And we go further even than that. We also implement Internet of Things solutions, and we develop AI and machine learning technologies for our customers. So we actually try to make the data work smarter for our customers, for the benefit of our customers. And we do that today in about 8 countries with about 200 people working at Codit.
And I can imagine, Sophie said, they take so good care of their people. I can imagine that having the right people, finding these people. I saw that you have a lot of jobs open for people. Mm-hmm. It's at the core of what you do in your company.
It's about finding people and keeping the people with you. Finding people is about all levels, about people leaving school, people having 2-3 years work experience. Also the senior guys. Senior guys is very difficult to find. It's also, once you have found them, to make sure that they are motivated to stay, and you don't only do that with money. Of course, you have to have a decent salary package, but you also have to provide them with career opportunities, about learning opportunities, about respect on the work floor, nice projects which are interesting, which are challenging for the people, etc., etc. So it's not one facet; it's a lot of facets which make the people having fun at the job and also wanting to stay. Of course, you can't do good for everybody. If you try to do that, you just killing yourself, right? So, but try to do good for the most. What we are trying to do, in fact, my goal at our company is to make an environment where our people can be successful. And if they are successful, the projects are successful, and the customers are happy, and then the people are happy. Making the people successful, that's something they need to do themselves, because you can give them training material, you can give them hardware, nice projects, but if they don't like it, it's out of our hands. So we try to give all means necessary for them to be successful. That's what we try to do day in, day out.
And how do you do that concretely? Because I suppose if I would talk to pretty much any CEO, they would say that. They would say, we have all the tools, our people get all the possibilities. But how do you make a difference there? Can you really concretely explain me a little bit how you do that?
Yeah, what we're trying to think employee centric. It's not easy. It's a challenge day in, day out. We try to think of what does the employee need to be successful, to be happy. It's about having the right project working on. Trying to help them not to go to the customer every time, because a person can live in Ghent and you have to go to Liège. That's not feasible. It's also listening to them, what their preferences are, how do they want to evolve, where do they want to be between here and 5 years, how can we assist them? Can we assist them into matching them with the right projects, or giving the right training capabilities, training materials to meet their expectations? It's also about having international opportunities as well. If they want to do something in France or in project in Switzerland, trying to search how we can facilitate that so they can actually expand their boundaries as well. So it's a lot of facets that we try to do. I'm not sure, I'm not saying that we are the only company who does that, for sure not. I think we have quite a high level of employee centricity, for sure.
And I can imagine, so you don't have one approach fits all. You have a quite individual approach for your people. You can do that when you're small, but you're growing very fast, almost 200 people now. How can you apply that very individualistic approach when you grow so fast and over eight countries already?
Well, that's the biggest challenge. That's something we struggle with day in, day out, because indeed, if you are with 10 people, it's easy. You know everybody. You spend time around with everybody. If you're with 200, you have to build a structure around that to facilitate that process. And structure means less flexibility. It means more procedures, and that's a big challenge, because although we are quite big, between brackets, we want to remain a small and pragmatic company. So the tension between both is quite high, and we try to do that day in and day out. But it's a big challenge, which I try struggling with today as well. It's not easy.
No, I can imagine. Also, one of the things that I was wondering about, you work a lot on your internal culture. Fun is a part of it. Individual choices, but how do you have one internal culture over the 8 European countries, or do you have different cultures in every country, or how does that work within Codit?
Yeah, well, every country has its own culture, right? Meaning, without Codit, every country, Swiss is not the same as Belgian people, UK people are not the same as Portuguese people. We need to respect that, and we need to actually leverage on that, because we cannot impose the Belgian culture on Portuguese people. That's impossible. What we mean with culture, we have some values that we set out, which are independent of the local country culture, like respect, trying to help everybody. There needs to be fun, and those company values we try to breathe and try to facilitate to adopt in every country. And it's the local country who then says, okay, those are the values, how are you going to implement them and make them compatible with the country culture which is already there. So it's not that we're trying to change their culture of their country. We want to actually facilitate and impose, if I can say that, the company culture on top of that.
And do you have an idea that is something that works well? Does it flow easily into each other, the local culture and the company culture? Yes,
because they're not in conflict with each other. You can perfectly be a Swiss person, and trying to help a Portuguese person with the challenges that he has, or vice versa. So the values that we have are not in conflict with the local country cultures that people have since birth. So absolutely. I haven't seen any problems on rising on that level.
No. Perfect. I would just like to tap in a little bit into the book. You haven't read the book because, of course, we don't know each other.
Sorry.
No problem. So the generic idea behind the care principles is that there's a possibility and opportunity for companies to take better care of someone or something. So generically, it's people or the planet. You can't do everything. Not every company is really there to save the world, but you can do something. But on a deeper level, there are 4 shifts in the way you do business that can be done better. And they are embedded into the word care. And they are collaboration. Well, can I turn this thing? Agility, reliability, and empathy. And you apply these care principles on the 4 main assets that any company has, starting internally, your own people. So better collaborating, trying to become more flexible. How reliable are you as an employer for your people? So your first asset is your people, and we'll talk a lot about that. Then secondly, of course, you have your clients. How can you better collaborate with your clients? I've seen some examples of that on your website as well. The R of care stands for reliability. It's really important. We live in an era with a lot of fake news, or at least controversial news. How, and especially as a fast-growing company, how can you keep your reliable image? You work in innovation. How do you do that? So I would like to talk about that with you. And then the last shift is empathy. Applying empathy on your own staff, on your own people, your clients, your community, so not only your shareholders, but all your stakeholders, and of course, taking care of the planet, having more empathy with everything that is happening for the planet. Now, I would like to start with the last thing, because in my experience, and I have no idea if at Codit it's different, a lot of technological startups, they focus a lot on technology, they focus a lot on innovations, but they are not so caring for the planet. Sustainability is often not something they really think about. How is that for you, and how is that for Codit? Are you the same, or is it different?
Well, I think it's a bit normal, because we as IT companies, we don't produce, we don't have a factory, we don't have machines, we don't consume a lot of energy, electricity, etc., except for the cloud. So it's not less tangible with us. The only thing that we are polluting a lot is if we drive from and to our customers with cars. So it's a bit less tangible for us. If you would have huge engines and fuels and so, you could say, okay, we'll try to reduce the fuel. So I can understand that from that perspective, it's a bit, if it's intangible, it's difficult to grasp and difficult to do something about it. But the biggest thing on sustainability is the pandemic. So if I can see the last 18 to 20 months, how our fuel bill has reduced on a monthly basis, it's crazy. People worked at home, they didn't drive anywhere. So, and that's something we have now set. So we've said to our people, we already had a new way of work policy where we said, okay, you can work wherever you want, but we try to get the people as much as possible to the office, because we said, okay, if you're not at the office, you cannot share. We've seen actually today that people sitting at home, 100%, everybody, we had received 0 complaints from any customer. On the contrary, people were happy because they were more efficient, more productive. They didn't have to, no traffic jams, no frustrations, no stress. So we said actually we have the activity-based policy. So you can work from where you are, from whatever it is, you can work where you are. Except your flexibility stops where the flexibility of the customer starts. If the customer says you have to be here 1 day a week, of course, then you have to go. And that's how we also try to build a bit of sustainability to avoid the fuel consumption as much as possible. Also, flying around will not be happening that much as it has been in the past. So, for that perspective, has been a pandemic for us has been a positive impact on our sustainability approach. Having said that, I cannot say that we have really built out a huge system in CSR program, etc. We're not there yet.
No.
However, I'm quite convinced that it's something we have to do while growing, for sure. The bigger we become, the bigger our impact will be, the more we have to pay attention on that.
Yeah. Is it something that you feel, because in my opinion, a CSR plan is also not the solution. That is what a lot of companies have been doing. And it's like something they do on the side. Oh yeah, we have a CSR plan. But you have to bring it, exactly. You have to bring the whole thinking about a more caring and sustainable growth into the core of your company. But is it something that you feel because you attract young people, young and talented people, that's the people that you need, educated. Is it something that they care about? Do you feel that it's something that already makes a difference to them, or it's not a differentiator yet?
I don't feel that it's not on the surface, but if you talk with them, of course, the younger people are more caring about the planet, more caring about their ecological footprint, etc. So I'm quite convinced that we need to do something about it. And like you say, it's not having a CSR plan is not enough. You need to embed it in your culture. It needs to be one of your values, right? It's not there yet at Codit, but I'm quite convinced we have to do that. It's not very visible that young people find more important than older people today at Codit, but I would not be surprised if it would be the case.
Is there something else that you see in the generations? Because every generation has its, let's say, advantages and its disadvantages. Is it something that you see in these 200 people that work for you today that is very different from your generation, and that you say, we really need to take care of that because otherwise we lose them?
Yeah, for sure. I think young people are much more demanding when it comes to work-life balance and flexibility. I remember when I was young, I think it's when I started at Codit in 2004. I drove from Kortrijk to I think it was Edegem every day to the Kennedy Tunnel without questioning. I think today it's impossible to ask young people that. Certainly, even more after the pandemic, when people are getting used to working at home, standing up, taking breakfast, going to a desk and start working. So the flexibility demands from young people are quite high, and that's a challenge, because also the customers at a certain moment of time, they also ask us, can you please come 1-2 days a week to our office, because we need to meet each other. There needs to be. I see young people have less the urge or the necessity to physically meet people than older people have, and that's like a tension between both that we need to try to cover. I'm quite convinced that we still need to meet people to be able to build up a meaningful relationship. It's very hard to have a meaningful relationship when you don't physically are able to look each other in the eye, even though you can do that through Skype or Teams or Zoom or whatever. There's a difference. We still remain people. I think the physical aspect of sitting face to face to each other is something different.
I guess it's something we grew up in that way, so we feel it very strongly. Probably for younger people it's different because they grew up digitally, and so they are used to see the whole world behind a screen. So their needs might be a bit different. I'm not saying they don't need the physical, because they have other issues with physical contact. They are not used anymore for physical contact, but their needs might be a bit different. Then again, I think the pandemic has also learned us, we were just talking about it, that we can work from home, that we can collaborate when we are all in a different office or in a different home. So I think we also adapted a little bit our way of seeing things, no? So do you think that we will end up in a hybrid?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's also what we say when we say, okay, activity-based working. Hybrid is the new way of working. You just have to work. You just need to be where you need to be to do the work in the most efficient way possible. And if it's at home, okay, no problem. If it's at your customer, okay. If you're going on holiday or in Spain and you want to work there and you can work more concentrated, no problem. For me, it's no issue. As long, of course, the customer is the blocking factor here, because not all customers are IT or are having a real good IT system and also are not with us in that way of thinking. In the beginning days, it was the Belgian government who typically was a bit reluctant into allowing remote work. Now they were forced to do that, and they said it works. We can trust them. They have done a great job over the past 20 months. Why wouldn't they do a job in the same manner in the coming 20 months? So that has helped a lot in actually preparing the minds, changing the mindset of a lot of customers also.
It accelerated
Absolutely.
that thinking. Yeah, I think that's a positive thing
because they have
COVID.
seen if they work at home, they can be efficient and effective as well. Because the typical those people who always go to the office who say you can't be effective and efficient when you work at home. In the contrary, you perhaps work even harder and more, and are more at home and more available for your kids and for your family. So.
Totally true. So you work on high-level innovations, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. It's a lot of buzzwords, and even for me, I'm trying to follow all of those trends. But even for me, it's sometimes difficult to grasp. How do you keep the human factor in such a technological revolution we are in, and how important will humans remain in this technological era?
Well, I always say to our teams, if you do something, if you implement a project, please talk to the customers and try to understand what you're actually implementing. Because of course you start from ideation, from functional design, technical design, and then you have to implement it, and you can implement things behind your screen. But you have to understand what you are doing. So talk to the people. If you develop a certain part of code, you have to understand what the business is behind it, how it impacts people when it doesn't work, even more important, because if you don't understand that, how can you develop something functioning? If you don't understand if something goes wrong, what's the impact for the process, for the customer, for our customer, and even perhaps more important, for the customer of our customer. So that's why I think the human aspect, people need to think further than only the screen and the code that they are writing. That's very important. Up to your second question, will humans be important in the future? Undoubtedly, absolutely, without a question. I mean, we've been through a lot of revolutions, right? You have the Industrial Revolution. I'm sure people thought that then as well. Will people still be relevant in the future? I'm 100% convinced that I think we should see technology not as a threat, but as an opportunity to help people, to assist people, to be actually an added value, to leverage our capabilities, both physically as mentally, for us. It's not a threat. It's not to praise us. Okay, perhaps they say, okay, driverless taxis, but those people who are doing taxi drivers now, they do something else in the future. There will be new jobs and new opportunities. So I'm not too scared about people saying there will be less jobs, etc. No, I don't believe that.
But can you understand that for a lot of people it is scary? Because a lot of these innovations, they seem to happen behind closed doors. There's a lot happening, but not yet a lot of it is visible. And for instance, we talk about the Internet of Things, but we don't have it yet. It's not like my fridge is already talking to my phone and to my computer and ordering my food or whatever. We know that all of that is already technically possible. We know it exists, but it's not in our lives yet. So for many people, it's kind of scary, and there's a lot of mental pressure now on people. Is it something that you can relate to? Is it something that you understand? Or
absolutely, technology evolves extremely fast. It's crazy how fast it evolves, and people can't catch up with the technological speed and technology advances that we are making today. So it's in human nature that if you don't understand something, you're most probably afraid or against it. So I think it's up to us as an IT industry to explain what the benefits are, to make sure to convince them that there's no threat in terms of privacy and things like that. And once people understand that, they will be more open to the mind of letting people, IoT entering their lives. And I think they would be surprised if they learned how much it's already entered their lives without them knowing it already. So,
is there a company or a brand or an application that you say, now that is really the way to go? This is something that if you look at that brand or you look at that company or that, I don't know, application or whatever, that is really something how the future will look like, and see how fun it is or how great it is?
Well, I think it's obvious if you look like companies like Tesla or Amazon or Volvo, actually experimenting with driverless cars. It's crazy how fast they are evolving in that, and I think this is something which will for sure be a huge technology advance. I think I'm quite convinced that in the future our kids or the kids of our kids won't have to drive a car anymore, or even don't have to own a car anymore. I think these type of things, I think the technology will not be the slowing factor of the implementation of that. It will be more humans and regulation who actually hold off on the technology advances that we already see today. So things like that, it's crazy how fast it goes. I'm quite convinced that we can already implement a lot, but people are not ready for it yet.
No. And regulation, that is absolutely something.
And that's something, of course, that's always been in the past and will always been in the future. Industry and technology evolves much faster than the governments and the regulation. I hope there will not be accidents before they regulate it. I hope they work together, and that's still a problem, I think. The industry needs to work together with the governments to make sure that the regulation is implemented on time and in collaboration with them to make sure that we avoid accidents.
To get back to the CARE principles, collaboration, you just said it. I think it's something important for your company. You collaborate a lot with your clients. You co-create with your clients. Your staff, your people go and physically work at your clients' offices. Do you take collaboration also to a different level? Do you, for instance, sometimes collaborate with your competitors to solve certain issues? How do you see the role of collaboration in the future?
Well, what we have since the beginning of Codit, we have been actually in the middle of every IT project we have been doing, because actually what we are doing, we are receiving data from, for instance, an SAP system, and we're sending the data to a supplier or a customer. That's a part of the job. But for doing that, we're coming in contact with a lot of types of people or companies or suppliers or customers. Much of those were also our competitors in that day. So collaboration is at the core of what we do, and have always been in the core of what we are doing. So if it's not a competitor, it's a partner, it's a government, it's a customer, and it's not because of a competitor that you actually give away a competitive advantage. I mean, in Belgium, much more than in other countries like the US, we are a bit skeptical and reluctant to work with, or to open up information and to be transparent. Because you think, oh, if I say this, he will steal it from me and he will do it better than I can. In the US, you don't have that type of mentality. You have people talking with each other, sharing information without any filter, and they just try to get something back of it and take that and make themselves better. And in Belgium, they say, no, I don't want him to be better, and I will stay at the same level. So for me, collaboration is much about sharing information, and of course, if you share, you don't get something back, then you have to think, that's strange. If you don't share bidirectionally, it doesn't work.
No.
So collaboration is all about sharing information and getting information back, and that's all that is all about.
Mm-hmm. Great. Agility, of course, there's agile way of working, which is not the agility that I talk about in my book. How do you implement that? You said, okay, flexible work spaces for our people. Are there other ways of agile thinking, agile way of working that you...
Well, agility has always been also very important for us, because in our projects, what we are doing, always the last to get a change. We always have to be the first to be ready. So being agile is extremely important. Being agile in resource allocation, in implementations, in testing, in overwork, also possible weekend work, etc. So agility is also coming close to flexibility. I think you have to be flexible, have to give flexibility to be able to receive flexibility. And I also try to teach my children that agility and flexibility are aspects which are very important in life as well, not only in professional life, but also in personal life. People who are working 20, 30, 40 years at the same employer, doing 20, 30, 40 years the same job, that doesn't happen. So you need to be able to consume a lot of information at a short period of time. You need to adapt to changing situations as much as possible. That's for the individual part, but there's also as a project team, but also as a company. You need to adapt. If Microsoft comes with new technology, we need to be able to embrace that technology, consume it, and implement it as fast as possible for our customers, to see what's the advantage for them, and how can we make a difference for our customers and for the business. So agility in every step of the way, personal life, business life, as a human, as an organization, as a society, is for me quite important.
Is an important one. No, I totally agree. And I'll get back to your children in a second. Reliability. You work with a lot of data. All the issues that we have about security, about your personal information that could be shared or sold, or how do you deal with reliability? How important is it to you?
Well, security is extremely important more and more, because we just at the early stages of what hacking is all about. I'm quite convinced about that. And we are quite lucky. We are working in an IT company, so everybody knows what the possibilities are. And we actually started a couple of months ago with a program within an organization to test, to do phishing attempts internally, just to make people aware about what the possibilities are, how professional those companies can be. And if you just click a wrong link, you can already jeopardize your own computers, but jeopardize our organization. But even more scary is jeopardizing information system of our customers. So we try to create some awareness about that at our employees, and further than that, also their families. It's not about employees alone. In terms of reliability, it's all about, as an organization, we need to make sure that we are reliable, that what we do is what we say, and what we say is what we do. Not only internally at our employees, quite important, because if you say A, I do B, people will perhaps accept that once, perhaps twice, but not 3 times. And customers only accept that once. Customers won't accept a second lie, if I can put it like that. So I think reliability is also about being authentic. No nonsense, no bullshit, if I can say it like that. Just say what you do and do what you say, and try to be reliable, and also try to be honest to people, with people, and with customers. If you can't do something, or you don't know something, don't be afraid to just say that. And young people have difficulties with that, because they think, okay, if I say I don't know it, they will think about me that I'm not experienced, or I'm stupid, or I'm not good enough. They will fire me, and it's not about that. I think I rather have a question too much than a question, not enough questions. See, it's also about a bit how secure or insecure are you. I try to say to people, ask questions. It's not a shame that you don't know something. Nobody knows everything. I think people who say they know everything, for sure they're lying. They're lying.
That's true, but and you're the CEO of Codit. In order to have a safe culture in which you can say, you're allowed to say that you don't know something, means that you, I suppose, as a leader, has to have a more vulnerable type of leadership. Is it something that you feel are you consciously aware of that? Is that something that you know that because I also suppose that you have a lot of male employees, because IT is still quite a boys kind of category, unfortunately. So I can imagine that very quickly you get that kind of the boys club.
Well, I think authenticity and vulnerability is very important in leadership. And I know for a fact that there are much smarter people walking around within Codit than myself. I don't believe in individual success. I believe in individual responsibility. And that's the difference. If you're successful, it's always thanks to somebody or something that allowed you to be successful. And for sure, if you know everything, that's not authentic. Today, people know that's a lie. You can't do everything alone. That's impossible. So vulnerability indeed, and showing vulnerability, saying that you made a mistake, and you know everything, and asking help as well. I think that's normal. Why would you want to have a different kind of culture in your company than you have in your family or with friends? I mean, that doesn't make sense for me at all.
I agree. I totally agree with you. But I think that still a lot of CEOs, they put on a suit when they go to work, and that suit is a kind of a shield that projects success and knowledge and a kind of status, and that makes them a very different person in the work situation than at home.
Yeah, perhaps. I think.
I'm sure you know CEOs like that as well.
Yes, for sure. But being CEO doesn't mean that you're the know-it-all guru of an organization. It just means that people look at you. There's a difference of being vulnerable and being decisive. Meaning, if something goes wrong, it's then that you need to be decisive and not show vulnerability. If something goes right, you need to show vulnerability and ask people, okay, how can we make it better? How can we change? How can we evolve? And they just think about establishing a culture, putting people together around you, making people happy, giving them with the means they need to be successful, and making decisions that people believe in and support. Because what's with the decision that you're the only one of the 200 people, I think that's right, and 200 people think it's wrong, then it will not work as well. So being a CEO is also trying to convince them and also allow you to be convinced by them as well. So,
do you need to show a lot of empathy in your role?
For sure. I think I'm very interested in the people themselves as well. It's not because they are working at Codit I'm interested. They're not. I actually ask about how you're doing. People are building houses, having families, having children. I'm quite actually, honestly, interested in that because what is it? It's not fun to work with people you don't know personal as well. You don't know only know professional, what they can do, how they can code, etc. But that's so superficial. I mean, everybody searches for more depth in relationships than only the work relationship. At least I do. And that creates a totally different bond. And also, when things go south and when you have problems, then you know how people are and how you can count on them. Or if when they have problems, you can know, okay, they have family, they have a problem with a child, etc. You can take that into account. If you don't know those things, you cannot act accordingly and cannot make the right decisions. So.
But how do you do that? You already have 200 people working for you. You're growing very fast. How do you have like a specific way of staying connected with your people, or is it just organic, or how do you do it? Because I imagine that your agenda is fully planned, like anybody's.
Yeah, indeed, that's a challenge. In the past, before the pandemic, I traveled a lot. I was a lot in the office. You talk with people, preferably not about the job. If you had a coffee machine, you talk with people out of the job. If you go abroad, went a lot abroad. We try to organize get-togethers in the evening, have a beer. You learn much more in a bar with colleagues than around the meeting table. Things like that, just talking with people, giving them a call, asking about the people, about their families, about the backgrounds. In the pandemic, it's much difficult because if you call them now, it's much more artificial. Because if you're standing around the same coffee machine, it's fluent. If you call them, you say, let's have a chat. It's much more.
Wow, the boss is calling me.
Yeah, indeed, and they say, it's calling. It's so totally different entry point than just standing in the kitchen and having a talk. Well, I try to do that from time to time and talking with people, and you see that people appreciate that. And also calling them out of the blue, asking them for an opinion on a certain topic is also quite valuable.
And so they know when they get your call, it's they never know if it's going to be about a job or about something personal.
Yeah.
So they're always
Indeed.
Stijn is calling. Okay.
Indeed. Which keeps a bit of tension as well.
Exactly. I have two more questions because I don't want to stretch it too long. You have two daughters.
Yes.
And as I said before, I think that the IT business in general, I don't know, how is the gender balance within Codit?
I think we have around 25 females and the rest is so 10%.
10%. Yeah. So it's not really gender balanced.
No.
It's a generic issue within the IT industry. You have two daughters. How do you see the role of young girls and females in the more technologically driven field in the future?
Well, I honestly believe that we should try to balance it out, having a 50-50. It will never work. I think this should be the objective. And we try to hire as much as female employees as possible. So today, if I would say, give me a male and female, two applicants for the same job, I would also and have the same CV and the same competency, I also always go for the female because we have an imbalance today. And you see there's a difference between male and female. One is not better than the other. If we would all have females, I would also try to hire the male then because it creates a healthier cultures. Indeed, all males, there's much more testosterone. A female has a lot of more detail more attention to details, more attention to customer communication with the customers, more subtlety in the communication. And I think I try to convince my girls to go into the IT industry, but I think I failed miserably.
Oh, yes. Okay.
They're not really interested in that. And I try to ask them, why not? I ask them, why aren't you interested in IT? And then I try to give some examples. IT is everywhere. It's in the medical sector. It's in the education. And they say just sitting behind the computer every day, all day. It's not my thing. But that's not what IT is all about. And there's a huge misperception of IT as actually is. IT is also about talking with people, trying to think about what the functional requirements about how can IT leverage the business, how can we help society, how can we help people, and that's also IT. It's not only coding, writing bits and bytes. Before you can do that, there's a huge process, long process, which came before we actually can start coding. And we still have, I don't know,
how old are they
cliche,
now?
14 and 12.
Okay.
And we still have the cliche that we are in the basement behind our PC and tapping code, nerds indeed tapping code and gaming, etc. But that's not what it is anymore. Not at all. Not at all.
So you might have to, with all IT companies, do like a whole change image work to attract more people.
Absolutely, and absolutely. I think this is our responsibility for sure.
Probably also because I'm talking now about gender balance, but it's also probably still white and male, and you're also probably not that diverse yet in terms of people from different backgrounds, different religions.
We have some in different countries. But in Belgium, it's mostly white males indeed. But for me, I don't care what color or background or religion. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's all about the person. How does he present himself? He or she present themselves. What's their experience? What's their competency? Are they motivated? And that's it. I would actually be pro blind solicitations. Why not? I don't have to see anybody to know if somebody is able to talk or to express themselves.
But is it for you very important what they studied and what are the hard facts on their CV, or on what do you recruit? Because I just had a CEO here who said, for us it's not important what is their background or their studies. We will train them. How is it in your business?
Well, it's a bit more difficult, of course. They don't have to have an IT background. We have a lot of people not without IT background who school themselves with the VDAB here in Belgium, etc. Because IT, it's not that you come from philosophy and then you come and jump in IT. It's kind of a lengthy training you need before you be able to actually code something. But those people who have that can do functional analysis, can work as a project manager, etc. For me, diploma is not really important. It's about, are you eager to learn? What have you done in the past? Because if now say, okay, now I want to do IT, but are you interested in IT before? Have you done something? Have you searched something on the internet, etc.? That's how you know if they are eager. If you ask to an applicant, do you know what we are doing? And they say, oh no, I haven't seen your website. And say, strange, you come to for a job here and you don't know what we are doing. I have that a lot, and it scares me, because how prepared are you? How motivated are you? How ambitious are you? Yeah, that's a bit strange for me.
Yeah, that's true. I totally can relate to that. But then again, I think the whole education, and I will not go deeper into that because we can do another podcast.
Indeed, 5, I
think. But the whole education and system is still very focused on what diploma do you have and what knowledge do you have, and so I think we have to change first the way we educate kids.
Yeah.
And then they can come, because I hear a lot of CEOs who say, for us, diplomas is not what matters anymore. It's attitude, it's eagerness, it's curiosity, it's willing to learn and willing but that's not how they are trained, unfortunately.
No, indeed. I don't know if you know Gary Vee.
No.
No, it's like a guru on the internet who actually says, okay, high school is irrelevant and you don't have to do that. And on a certain level, he is right. But I think education is also about learning discipline, having a system, a routine in your life, because every person, human, needs routine. And a certain amount of time you're having the discipline in yourself, and then indeed I don't think school is important anymore. If you know what you want to do and you're disciplined enough and you have the ambition, you can learn and teach yourself, for sure. Much faster than you will learn at school level. But not everybody is able to do that. So we cannot say education is irrelevant. No, a lot of people need that discipline and need to consume energy from somebody who give it to them. And other people are not fit to that. They need to search for it themselves and trial and error to educate themselves. So it's one size doesn't fit all.
No, totally right. Last question, Stijn, and I asked that question to everyone. What can other companies, other people learn? Do you have tips and tricks from yourself as a CEO or from Codit, from the experience that you have, that you say, well, listen, this is nothing related to my business or to my industry or my company. Anybody can apply this. This is an insight that, frankly, more people can do to become a more caring employer or brand.
That's a good question. I think stay authentic is, I think, the most important thing as a leader, as a person. Even then, is stay who you are, no matter who is in front of you. I mean, even if you go to huge customers, I remember going to Paris to the CFO of a huge company with, I think, hundreds of thousands of employees, and that person was just a person like you and I. And I had the experience, the higher and the change you get, the more normal the people became, certainly in Paris. Just stay who you are. You don't have to do something, pretend to be somebody else. It will not make you happier. You will have stress, you will have, don't have meaningful relationships. So I would say stay yourself, and if it doesn't click with somebody, okay, then you know quickly, and then draw a line and go to the other. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Stijn. We don't know each other, but we know each other a little bit better now. And I'm very happy that you took some time to come over to this podcast.
With pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Wonderful having you. Thank you so much. For the people at home, thank you to rate this podcast, to subscribe to it, and to tell others about the Care Principles podcast. Thank you and take care.
Do you also want to grow your brand in a caring and sustainable way? Check out thecareprinciples.com and see how we can help you.